In this section, we will talk about introducing big data and NoSQL in the enterprise. One of the common questions that we get is, what should we do if we are a relational database practitioner? Which path would be the most optimal for us? I would always recommend going for a quick win, and that means typically starting with Hadoop and Hive or Pig. Hive is a good starting point if you have experience with relational databases. The fact that Hive is based on SQL is going to make it easier to move towards Hadoop and big data. Many users later switch to Pig when they are dealing with more complex programs. The ability of Pig to be incrementally developed line by line, trying it out, developing program in little pieces is very beneficial. Both approaches would be beneficial for you if you are a data professional because both of the approaches avoid Java programming. Now, if you're looking for more power, I would recommend looking into Scalding. Scalding is a Scala domain-specific language which enables for very effective programming of Hadoop MapReduce jobs. It provides the paradigm which is very appealing because the MapReduce programs will look like ordinary programs that are operating on in-memory data collections. Spark and Apache Flink would have the similar approach. Implementing data warehouse and ETL with Hadoop would be another very good choice. Even if you don't have huge amounts of data, using Hadoop in this role could be a very interesting choice. We are often using the definition of big data, bigger than you are used to. And Hadoop warehouse or ETL implementation can be very interesting because it can free your existing relational databases to do other tasks, and you can also see significant reduction in cost. Now, you will find applications where Hadoop batch processing is not a good match. Then what you should do is to check various NoSQL databases. Perhaps Apache Cassandra could be a good choice for you, or MongoDB, or one of the many players in that field. Using Hadoop as ETL is not an overly glamorous approach to big data, but it is very pragmatic, it is easy to start with, but it ends up often messy in practice. We need to deal with a variety of features like data integration, workflow, process orchestration, and scheduling. And the tooling that we have on the Hadoop side is not as sophisticated and mature as what we find in conventional relational systems. One of the attractive points when you are dealing with large volumes of data is that Hadoop can give you cheaper and faster processing than relational database. And the dealing with simple ETL is often a quick win for Hadoop and a great way to gain experience and introduce Hadoop in a cost-effective way in the organization. You should remember that the tooling is not as fancy as you may have learned to expect from relational stores. One thing that you should always do in these systems is to integrate with existing applications. And for that, you will start with Scoop. Scoop will integrate relational databases and Hadoop in both directions. And the other system that you should look into is Flume. It is organized around the concepts of sources, pipes, and sinks. It provides us with transactional transport of data and has a very rich collection of adapters that can move log files, that can enable us to periodically read such data, integration with messaging systems, services, and even social media. One thing to consider is that you could deploy big data in the cloud, and that can be your private or a public cloud. In a conventional environment, when you need increase in performance, you would go and buy new hardware. The problem is that in many cases, we need to handle just a peak, and in that case, our infrastructure is going to be underused. On the other hand, if we are handling bursts, we cannot respond on such a short notice, go and get all the hardware that we need. This is why cloud is so interesting. When our needs increase, we can dynamically allocate only what is needed, and then when we are done with our computation, we can release the resources. We can process various bursts in our requests without buying new infrastructure. And also, we can provide for redundancy across multiple data centers. In that case, we may buy just enough infrastructure for normal loads, and we can be doing a cloud bursting where we go and move the processing temporarily to the cloud. So when we are dealing with cloud processing and big data, we can run and administer our own Hadoop cluster. Or you could use pre-configured Hadoop system in the cloud. You have various options, and depending on how sensitive are you to having data in the cloud, you can choose to run this either in your private or in a public cloud. One thing you should not forget is that in every enterprise, your processing needs will not end just by running Hadoop. You will be working in a workflow in which you will be acquiring data that will come from various sources. The data may come in different formats. It can come with different velocity. And you first need to store this data. You need to analyze what is in this data. This is where we would be using our Hadoop MapReduce programs. The results of our computations would often need to be visualized so they can be consumed. We also need to manage both our data and big data programs. We need to share the data, and here we are dealing with some tricky issues because movement of data in petabyte scale is very cumbersome. And we should not forget integration with existing systems. Our enterprises need to derive value from both operational and big data systems. And as you are working on such applications, the appetite of your organization will grow and you will be starting the next cycle of development. One of the critical things in working with big data is to provide business value from the big data chain. You need to provide tangible results. You need to execute in time and cost-effective manner. There are organizations that get seduced by the big data systems and they start playing and experimenting and never provide anything tangible to the business. You should work with the business in order to figure out what pain point can you solve with big data and NoSQL technologies.